Hello, everyone, and welcome back for some more Drag Race gossip, secrets, and drama. So, as you can see, I'm on camera today, and I thought I would start off this new season of Canada versus the World for the Have Your Say series. So, I would be on camera to celebrate the start of the new season. So, today I'm going to be recapping episode 1 of Canada versus the World season 2, going through the results of the Have Your Say poll, where you get to vote on whether you agree with the outcome of the episode. And I'll be talking about a little bit of drama that happened this week to do with Willam getting kicked out of DragCon LA. All that and more coming up in today's video, so let's get started. Okay, so let's start by recapping the episode. So we'll go through the queens Alexis Mateo from US Season 3, All Stars 1 and All Stars 5. Then it was Cheryl, formerly known as Cheryl Hole, from UK Season 1 and then UK versus the World Season 1. Then it was Eureka from US Season 9, Season 10, and then All Stars 6. Next was Kennedy Davenport from US Season 7 and All Stars 3. Then it was LaPhil from UK Season 4. This was followed by Lemon from Canada Season 1 and UK versus the World Season 1. Then Miss Fiercelicious from Canada Season 3. Then Tynomi Banks from Canada Season 1. And then finally was La Caena from France Season 1. And in general, what I found really interesting about this cast is, I think out of every All-Stars we've ever had, I think this is the cast with the most amount of queens who have come back the most amount of times. I mean, if we take people like, for example, Kennedy and Eureka, they've been on the show 4 times now, whereas people like, for example, Lemon has been on the show 3 times, as well as Cheryl. And then we also have a couple of queens such as LaPhil, Miss Fiercelicious, La Caena, who have only been on the show once. But I thought it was quite interesting that we have some queens who have now been on the show 4 times. So this is almost as many as Jujubee, who I believe holds the record for the most amount of seasons. In general, I think it's a fun cast. I would have perhaps liked to have seen a little bit more variation in terms of the different franchises. It was quite heavy on US and then a couple of UK and obviously Canadian queens. But for example, the only person from a non-English speaking franchise is La Caena from Drag Race France. Everyone else is from an English speaking franchise. And given that the name is Canada versus the World, it kind of feels a little bit more like Canada versus the US and the UK and then one French person. So yeah, maybe a little bit more variation. But overall, I actually quite like the cast. And let me know in the comments what you think about queens coming back 3 or 4 times. Do you think it's good because we know that they're going to bring it and they're going to bring the entertainment and the good drag? Or would you prefer maybe a queen who we've not had back since their original season and this is their first time back on All Stars? Let me know what you think in the comments. Some of the other things that I find interesting where we find out that the actual format of the show has changed quite a bit from what we know of normal All-Stars. So we find out that a returning queen has come back, which is the Golden Beaver. Now, for those of you who've seen previous versions of Canada's Drag Race, you know that they introduced that last season, and it basically means the top queen gets the Golden Beaver, and they get to choose to save one of the bottom queens from being in the bottom 2 and lip syncing. And the format in general has switched around quite a lot, and in this All-Stars it's going to mirror more of like a regular season, that from what we've seen we're going to see 3 queens in the bottom and then 1 queen who's in the top will get the Golden Beaver and get to save one of the 3 bottom queens from lip syncing, and then the bottom 2 queens get to lip sync for their life. And obviously this is quite different from All-Stars so far, because most of the All-Stars we've seen, it's been the format that the top 2 queens lip sync for the win and then they get to decide who goes home. But this is more like a regular season where the bottom queens actually get to lip sync for their life. And I actually quite like this format. I think it's maybe fairer to give the bottom queens a chance to fight for their own place in the competition rather than leaving it up to one of the top queens who then gets to decide. So I quite like this because I think it introduces a bit more drama and maybe a little bit more stakes to the competition. And yeah, I just think it adds a certain something. So I'm quite quite glad that they're switching this up. Okay, so we find out that the first challenge for this week is that they have to do a girl group challenge, and the queens get presented with 3 names of 3 different songs, and they get to choose which song they want to do, i.e. which group they're going to be in. And the groups that get decided are, for the song Bopulence, we have Alexis, Eureka, and Lakaina. For the song This Beat, we have LaFille, Miss Fierce Delicious, and Tynomi Banks. And then the song Tongue Pop is Cheryl, Lemon, and Kennedy Davenport. The queens then do the unpacking in the workroom, and there's maybe, the usual conversation about alliances and things like that. I think I'm just going to move on to the actual performance on the runway of the girl group challenge. So the first group we had up was the Just Divas with the song Bopulence, which was Alexis, Eureka, and Lakaina. In general, unfortunately, I think this was probably my least favorite of the 3, although I did quite like their verses, and I think they all had something really unique to talk about. I do think that they didn't quite have the cohesion, which is something that the judges commented on as well. I think, unfortunately, some of the queens like Alexis Mateo, I think was the standout in the group, but I just don't think they gelled together, and they all had different energy levels, and it just didn't quite work, unfortunately. But I thought they all looked good and they did a decent job, but compared to some of the other queens, I just don't think this group quite hit the mark, unfortunately. So the next group after that was The Face with the song This Beat, which was LaFille, Miss Fierce Delicious, and Tynomi Banks. This was actually personally my favorite group, perhaps controversially. I quite like this group because I felt like they gelled the best out of all of the other groups. And I do feel like they were all on kind of the same level in terms of the choreography, the energy level as well. I just thought it actually looked like a real girl group rather than 3 people performing together. For me, the standout in the group was LaFille. I love LaFille. I've interviewed him. I also met him at DragCon, but I just really like him as a drag performer. He's really interesting. And I thought that in this particular challenge, he choreographed it. He brought a lot of energy to it. But I also thought he stood out because I loved the message of his song being about androgyny and playing with gender, which is something that LaFille is known for. But also, I think LaFille made a really smart decision to stand out by actually singing rather than just rapping. And then the final group was the Slapbacks with the song Tongue Pop, which was Cheryl, Lemon, and Kennedy Davenport. This was my second favorite group, and I do think they had a decent amount of cohesion. And I thought maybe from looks wise, they maybe looked the most like a girl group because they stuck to a similar color palette. A lot of the other groups also did similar colors, but I think this group probably looked the most cohesive in terms of the outfits. The standout for me was Lemon. She is well known as a rapstress, and I really liked that she had a couple of references in her song, bringing back to her rap in her original season on Canada season 1 with the song Sorry About It. And they all worked very well together. I thought the choreography was good. But for me, I think the reason I chose the second group as my favorite was just I feel they had a little bit more cohesion, both in terms of the verses, but also the looks and the choreography in general. And so in terms of the runway this week, it was best drag. So I'm just going to quickly go through and show the looks. I'm not really going to comment or critique them. It's just not my thing. I mean, who am I to critique fashion? But I'm just going to show each of the looks quickly, but I will say at the end which was my favorite. So first of all, we had Alexis Mateo. Then we had Lakaina. This was followed by Eureka. Next, we had Lemon. Next up was Kennedy Davenport. Then we had Cheryl. Next came Tynomi Banks. Then we had LaFille. And then finally, we had Miss Fierce Delicious. In general, I thought this was a fun runway. I think my personal favorite was Alexis Mateo. I just think that outfit looked so good on the runway. It was so elaborate, so big. I thought the surprise of pulling up the back piece was a really interesting and cool thing to do, and it looked really good on camera. And we know that Alexis always turns a look and she's always so entertaining. And I just thought that color popped on camera really well and you could really see all of the details. So for me, that was the standout. So we find out that the top group this week is Cheryl, Kennedy, and Lemon. And Lemon is the top queen of the week. And then the bottom queen is Alexis, Eureka, and Lakaina. Lemon won this week's challenge and the Golden Beaver, so she gets to choose who she saves from lip syncing in the bottom 2. We see the queens then come back to the workroom and they do the normal thing of the queens have to plead for why they want to be saved. And one thing I thought was interesting was we did actually get a decent amount of drama in this, in that Eureka said she didn't want to lip sync and Alexis seemed to think that was very disrespectful. But I thought it was quite interesting because we haven't seen that amount of drama from an All-Stars in a while. So I did quite enjoy that the queens seemed to be being themselves and maybe there was some shade being thrown and things like that. But Alexis did post on Twitter afterwards saying that they are friends and what you see on camera isn't always everything. So I think it was just some fun shade, but I'm glad that there was some drama because it does keep it interesting. And I also quite liked someone like Miss Fierce Delicious was kind of trying to be the devil on the shoulder by saying that maybe you should put some of the queens who have been there multiple times, or in other words, the American queens like Alexis and Eureka, that you should put them in the bottom because then at least one of them would go from the competition. But we find out later on the main stage that Lemon chooses to save Alexis. And I must say, I personally would have chosen to save Alexis as well, just because I think it was the fairest decision, given that I think Alexis was the best in the group. So that means that Eureka and La Cayena have to lip sync for their lives, and Eureka is announced as the winner, which means that La Cayena unfortunately is told to sashay away. Okay, so now let's move on to the result of the Have Your Say poll for this week. So question 1 was, which queen had the best entrance look? And we had Lemon in first place with 35.8%, followed by LaPhil with 25.5%, and then Alexis Mateo with 10%. I personally would have given it to LaPhil, I think. I just really loved the balloons and I thought it was a very cool concept for an entrance look and it was quite different. But Lemon's was also an amazing outfit. And I mean, Lemon always looks great. She's got a signature color and she always turns a look. So it wasn't that surprising that she looked great. Question 2 was, which of the songs would you have chosen for the girl group? And we had Tongue Pop with 64.5, This Beat with 24.8, and then Bopulence with 10.6. I also would have chosen Tongue Pop just because I think from the name, it was obvious what type of song it was going to be. And it also sounded maybe the most dramatic. So I probably would have picked that one because it was the most obvious what you're going to get from it. Question 3 was, which girl group was the best? And the first group was the Slapbacks, which was Lemon's group with 90%. Then it was The Phase, which was LaPhil's group with 9.4%. And then Just Divas, which was Alexis, Eureka, and La Cayena, only got 0.6%. So this was actually a pretty obvious result for Lemon's group, the Slapbacks being the first group. Now, as I said, I did really love the Slapbacks. I thought they all did very, very well. As I said, I personally would have given it to The Face, which was LaPhil's group, just because I really enjoyed LaPhil specifically. But I also did think that both groups, it was very difficult to decide between the two. So I was kind of happy with either. Question 4 was, who do you think should have won the challenge? And I think this, I guess I meant who would win if it was judged individually, not just in groups. And perhaps unsurprisingly, we had Lemon with 67.1%, followed by Kennedy Davenport with 11.9%, and then LaPhil with 9.7%. As I said, I personally would have given it to LaPhil just because I thought LaPhil did really well. I loved his lyrics. I loved everything about his performance and the message behind it, but also the fact that he sung. But we can't deny that Lemon is an incredible rapstress, and I think her rap did sound the best out of everyone's because she really knows how to work the beat and really know every single punch in that music and how to really enunciate so you get the clear message. And she also made it quite fun as well. So I can see why she was number 1. Question 5 was, who had the best runway look? And with 50.3% of the vote was Alexis Mateo, followed by LaPhil with 13.5%, and then Miss Fierce Delicious with 13.2%. As I said, Alexis was also my favorite. That look was just so opulent, extravagant. It was everything. I really loved it. The color, just how sort of Vegas and showgirl it was. And it really was a show-stopping moment because it looked really good on camera. But I did also love LaPhil's look. I thought it was really cool that he was talking about his heritage and everything, but also just the color. All of the details, red and gold, just look so good together. So that was also a standout for me as well. And I thought it was funny that Miss Fierce Delicious had this through line of the episode that she came in her very famous prolapse dress, as it's called, which was from her season in the design challenge. And she's worn it on a few other occasions, for example, at DragCon in the past. And she kind of joked about wearing it again if she ever got on All Stars. So I thought this was quite funny that she wore it in the episode and then this runway was kind of the elevated version of it. Question 6 was, who would you have saved with the golden beaver? And we had 64.8% for La Caena, followed by 32.3% for Alexis, with only 2.9% for Eureka. And I can see why people said this. I think reading the comments, which we'll get onto in a minute, I think a lot of people felt bad for La Caena because she was the first eliminated on her original season, and then she got eliminated again this season first. So I do think it is very hard, and I would have loved to have seen more of La Caena because I think she's really fascinating. So I would have liked to have seen more of her. But as I said, I probably would have chosen Alexis to save just because I would have done it based on who was the best in the challenge. And I think Alexis was the best in that group. Question 7 was then who won the lip sync, and we had 62.9% for Eureka and 37.1% for La Caena. And I felt this was quite a difficult lip sync. I know that they chose the song because it was by the guest judge. I just felt like it was not really a great lip sync song, especially for this early in the competition. Usually I would, in my opinion, choose something a little bit more upbeat for the first episode. And I just don't think it quite hit the mark, this song choice. It was just maybe a little bit too emotional for the first episode. The two queens also, in my opinion, did this in very different ways. I think La Caena maybe really embodied the type of song the most with the emotion, whereas Eureka, the way she was dressed didn't really match with the vibe of the song, but it was potentially more eye-catching to look at. So it's quite difficult which criteria you judge it on. And then question 8 was, who do you think is the front runner so far? Or in other words, who's most likely to win the competition? And we had Lemon with 67.1%, followed by Kennedy Davenport with 11.9%, and then Alexis Mateo with 9%. And I think this makes sense because Lemon did win this week and she is a very talented queen. And so far we don't have anything else to go on other than this episode and what we know about the queens from before. So I can see why people chose Lemon as number 1. And then if we look at second and third place, which was Kennedy and Miss Fierce Delicious, they're both very entertaining queens. And I think they're the sort of people that will bring the drama and the entertainment. And we did kind of see that this episode. So I can also see why people voted for these two as also being very front runners. But let me know in the comments who you think is going to be top in the next episode, which by the looks of it is going to be an acting challenge, and let me know why you think they're going to be in the top. Okay, so moving on to the comments for this week. So my Patreon member Ashley said, I like the Versus the World series of Drag Race. And I agree. I actually really like this concept of mixing the queens together. As I said earlier, I do think this particular group didn't have that much representation of non-English speaking franchises, so I would have liked to have seen a bit more of that. But overall, it is a fun group of queens, and I quite like that you're throwing all of these queens together who potentially have never met each other before because they all come from different countries, and I think it really is nice representation, but it also adds a certain extra something to the season. And my Patreon member Amy said, I was disappointed in Lemon, to be honest. I would have thought that she, above all the others, would know what it was like to have your dreams shattered by going home first. I wish she would have saved La Caena. And this was quite consistent throughout all of the comments, people saying things like, I'm so sad about La Caena being first out again. I really wish Lemon had saved her so we could have seen her at least for one more episode. Or people saying that they were devastated that she got sent home and they really wanted to see more of La Caena. And I definitely agree. If it was up to me, I think it would be a nice idea. And they have done this in a few seasons before, but I think it would be nice that no one goes home on the first episode so that each queen is guaranteed at least 2 episodes. I think at that point, if you're in the bottom again, then maybe it's fair enough because you've had 2 chances to show yourself. But on the first episode, it is really hard and not very nice, I can imagine, to go home first, especially if you went home first on your original season. Someone else mentioned that we're getting some drama, which has been sorely lacking from other All-Stars recently. And I definitely agree. I think the fact that we have eliminations back, as well as the format of the top queen getting to save one of the bottom, and then the 2 queens in the bottom have to lip sync for their life, I think it adds a lot more stakes to the competition, and it also ups the drama that there is because the queens are really fighting for their lives in this competition. But let me know what you think. Do you like that they're going back to this more standard style of Drag Race in a bit more maybe cutthroat way? Or do you prefer the All-Stars 9 approach of no one goes home, no eliminations, and no negative critiques? There were also a couple of comments, and it was very mixed about whether it should be judged in teams or not. Some people said they do like it judged in teams, but other people said that they didn't. And I personally have always thought if it is a team challenge, you should be judged in teams. Personally, I don't like it when they break up the teams because oftentimes it just feels quite unfair. But let me know in the comments what you think. Is it better judging in teams or judging individually? Okay, and finally, we're going to move on to a little bit of drama that happened this week to do with Willam getting kicked out of DragCon. So, as many of you know, and I have talked about this on my channel before, Willam, who was on season 4 and got disqualified, has had somewhat of a strained relationship with World of Wonder because Willam has in the past made quite a few critical comments about World of Wonder and RuPaul in general. And Willam has talked before about the fact that she's not sure if she's really welcome at World of Wonder anymore and knows that she potentially won't ever be asked back for an All-Stars, or has kind of severed that relationship slightly. Well, Willam has been at DragCon in previous years, but this year, from what I've seen online, she chose not to have a booth, but she did decide to go and attend. And from what we've seen online, Willam actually got kicked out of this year's DragCon. It all started when someone tweeted asking Willam if she got kicked out of DragCon, and Willam replied saying, "Yeah, listen to the pod this week and watch my YouTube, videos of it all happening coming." Willam then posted a video clip from DragCon on her Instagram, and it said, "Got kicked out of RuPaul's DragCon. Check out at Race Chaser Pod and my YouTube this week for more footage of the 11 cops and guards circling me, moving me out the door like the only villain. Fun stuff. At least I got a private at Dahlia Sin meet and greet." And from what we saw in the clip, Willam was walking around DragCon, and then in the part we saw, Willam was walking outside, and we could see that there looked like security guards in the background. And then Willam had a brief interaction with Dahlia Sin and says that she's being kicked out.
They're kicking me out. Are they really?
Yeah.
I'm a risk for the event. Uh-oh.
Willam then later posted an Instagram story providing a few more details that said, "The hench person of @Wow Presents Plus told me I wasn't able to be accommodated due to me not RSVPing. They said the event was sold out. I was already backstage with my pass and they were selling tickets at the door still, so sold out, ? Look at the group shots. Lies. I tagged WoW Records cause @World of Wonder blocked me. Let everyone know just cause they make some fun shows about queens and realtors does not mean they aligned with the truth." Willam then posted a slightly longer version of the video to her YouTube. And at one point in the video, we can see Willam walking around DragCon, and then she's standing in line for the RuPaul photo op. But from the looks of it, the line is empty because the photo op hasn't started yet, and there's only one other person in the line. And it looked like Willam was also holding RuPaul's book, The House of Hidden Meanings. And Willam also posted this clip on Twitter, and some people in the comments were criticizing Willam, saying that she was deliberately antagonizing RuPaul by being in her line for the photo op, so it's no wonder that she got kicked out. But Willam did clarify in the reply that RuPaul wasn't there yet at the photo op, and if she had been, then Willam wouldn't have gone and stood in line. Willam then subsequently posted another post on Instagram with quite a lengthy statement with a few more details about it. The post said, "There's a special spot in hell for people that can't take the truth being told on them, but baby, I will ring out those truths like a bell eye. My story has a link to my free new YouTube video that you can walk along with me through DragCon and see them surround me with cops and guards like I was a criminal. They trailed me around the convention center and then waited till I went backstage for the Queen's Walk to descend and encircle me so they wouldn't be by the fans and cameras. Very smart. At RuPaul's DragCon, emphasis on the con. Sorry not sorry I aired your dirty laundry about the sexual harassment your union crew had to endure this past year, and more details on that on at Race Chaser Pod this week. I made your event better every year, never charging a single fan for a pic and being a freebie for the fans who deserve it after how you scalp them for coins, and paid full price for a booth every year. Let World of Wonder know what chumps they are and leave a comment on the video or on their page. Sorry for the record low numbers at your events. I will always love Drag Race and be a fan, but there's no reason to act like just because WoW makes some cute shows about queens and realtors that they are impervious or insulated from criticism. There was also another interesting bit of extra information about this which came out in an interview between Ricky Cornish and Nicole Page Brooks. So Nicole was being asked by Ricky about Willam being kicked out, and Nicole seemingly said that she was with Willam and was being held back from entering, and then as soon as Willam left, Nicole was allowed to go in.
Here's some gossip for you. Willam was with me the whole time, right? As soon as Willam left my side, they let me right in. Do you think it was shade towards Willam?
Probably, girl.
They were like, hold here, hold here, hold here. And then as soon as Willam stepped away, come on, Nicole. I was like...
But other than that, we don't know that many of the details, and as Willam said, she will be talking more about it on her podcast Race Chaser this week, so that hasn't come out at the time of recording this video, so I'll have to wait and see if Willam provides any more details about why she got kicked out of DragCon. So there you go, there was the Have Your Say for Canada vs. the World Season 2 Episode 1. What do you think of the first episode, and how do you feel about the format of the show, and are you glad that we're back to eliminations and negative critiques? Let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to get early access to my videos but also have your comments featured in my Have Your Say videos, please consider subscribing to my Patreon. It just costs a few dollars a month and I'd really appreciate your support, and it does go a really long way to help support the channel. And I'd also like to say thank you so much to my existing Patreons. It's so amazing to have your support every month. I truly appreciate it. And to see you support me like this every month really does mean a lot. So thank you so much. I see you and I really appreciate you. Please make sure you like and comment on the video because it really helps tell the algorithm this is a great video to recommend to others. And please make sure you hit the subscribe button to make sure you're up to date and know when a new video comes out. Thanks for watching, and I hope you'll join me again for some future videos. Thank you, bye!